Alrighty. I don't have anybody from other classes in here today, do I? We can go back to normal.
Miss, why do you start class so late?
Do what?
Why do you start class so late?
We're just starting second period. It hasn't started yet. Class
Oh,
starts
I need.
at 8:50. We're really supposed to start at 9. What class are we? What's she talking about? Um, let's see. Yes. Alessandra. Wait. This is a B day, right? Okay. Oops. 11:05. Okay, Carlos. Luis. Eric. Brandon. Samuel. Sherman. Alize. Diana. Davian. Julian. Haven. Dylan. Edgar. Andy. Javier. Minerva. Jesus. Daniel. Sebrian. Angel. Carla Dominguez. Mariani. Alicia. Alexandra. Karen. Nathan. Danella. Angel Silva. Angeline. And Alexandra. Okay. Fourth. Okay. Can everyone in here, you need to get into the Zoom. That means you need to go to the classwork tab in the middle. Scroll down till you find November 5th. And then you will see something that says agenda for class. Mr. Handy's class may look a little bit different. He may have posted it differently, but you would click on it, which is November 5th, 2020 agenda for class. You could click on that Google slide and it's going to open up. And everything should be in there except your ed puzzles. So there's the link for the Zoom meeting is in there. All you have to do is click that link. And you can join the Zoom if you're not already in there. Okay, so in this, I don't know if Mr. Handy set his up this way, but I went ahead and set it up for my class. Everything is already listed in here for you. There is a link to your DOL from last week. If you haven't finished it, you need to hurry up and get it finished because grades are going in and I can't put anything in after Friday at noon. So if you haven't finished all of everything that you need to turn in, Mr. Handy's class too. If you haven't finished all those grades, if you haven't done all your ed puzzles, if you haven't completed assignments, you have until noon tomorrow to get it in, to get it done. After that, too bad, because we have to have time to get grades in. So you have to get them in tomorrow. Grades can't change after that. Okay, so here you will find what we're supposed to need to do for today. We are working on TEAC 7.3A. The student is expected to trace the development of events that led to the Texas Revolution, including the Fredonian Rebellion, the Mary-Turan Report, the Law of April 6, 1830, the Turtle Bayou Resolutions, and the arrest of Stephen F. Austin. Your LO, I will be able to understand how individual events and issues related to the Texas Revolution shaped the history of Texas, trace the development of events that led to the Texas Revolution, including the Fredonian Rebellion, the Mary-Turan Report, the Law of April 6, 1830, the Turtle Bayou Resolutions, and the arrest of Stephen F. Austin. Starting tomorrow, Friday and Monday, you will take a DOL. Your DOL, I will be able to understand how individuals and events and issues led to the development of the Texas Revolution by completing a quiz in all-in learning with an 80% accuracy. Your quiz will be in all-in learning, okay? Now, we started on this the other day. You were supposed to be making notes. You were supposed to write the notes that are in red. But I'm going to go through and we're going to complete talking about the last couple of things in these notes, and then you need to go back and you're going to need to complete the questions and the embedded questions that are in there. And you need to make your notes, because if you don't have any notes, you can't use those notes on the test. That's next week. So if you don't have notes, I can't do anything to help you. On top of the fact that notes are a grade, because you're going to upload them when you upload this assignment. So what you would need to do if you're in my class, there should be a link in Mr. Handy's if he has one. It is right here. Or you may have already started on it, and it's in yours already. So I think we were down here. We had talked about, did we talk about the Turtle Bayou resolution? Guys, anybody? Did we talk about the Turtle Bayou resolution? No? Yes? Did we talk about the Fredonian Rebellion? Okay, we did that one. Did we talk about what happened at Anahuac? No, can y'all see my screen?
I think that's where we left off, Ms. Avery.
I'm sorry?
I think that's where my class left off, and
Anahuac, okay. So we're gonna back up just a tiny bit. So, all right. Law of April 6th happened. Law of April 6th happened because the Anglo colonists outnumber the Tejano people that live there, the Mexican people that already live there. So they passed a law. They just basically said, to heck with what the Constitution says, we're just gonna pass this law. And it's gonna outlaw immigration from the United States. You can come from any other country in the whole wide world, but you can't come from the United States. I need you to sit up, please. Thank you very much. You can come from anywhere but the United States. It canceled all the impresario grants and contracts and said that if they're not filled, that's oh well. And it's going to say that people can come from Europe, but you cannot come from the United States, and that slaves could no longer be brought into Mexico. If you already have slaves, you can't get any more. And really, they were saying no slavery at all. But the colonists are not going to follow that in the least little bit. And they're going to impose customs duties on all goods that are coming in to Texas and Mexico from the United States. A customs duty is a tax. So let's say you want to buy a phone on the internet and it costs you $200 and you pay the $200, and then when you go to pick up the phone, there's a customs duty on it, a tax, because it's coming into the United States, and it's another $200 tax on top of it. So you paid $400 for that phone. Okay? That's what's happening, and the people were upset about that because that had never happened before. So down in Anahuac, where the port was, this is where all the goods would come in. They were collecting taxes on imported goods, and the taxes were meant to raise money for Mexico and to encourage internal trade with Mexico, but not necessarily with the United States. They wanted to kind of get mad at the United States because a bunch of people from the United States had moved in to Texas. So John Bradburn was the Mexican commander at Anahuac. And Bradburn didn't always treat the Texans very well or with much respect. And they had gotten into several arguments and disagreements before. And then finally in May of 1832, after Bradburn, basically what happens is they get into an argument over some customs duties, some things that had been brought into from the United States, and Travis and Jack didn't want to pay it, and they got into a squabble, and they got a little bit of a fist fight, and it winds up that Bradburn has Travis and Jack arrested and puts them in jail for interfering with his efforts to enforce the law. And the settlers get upset with him because Travis and Jack were two kind of guys that kind of stood up for everybody. Everybody liked them. So they were ticked that they had been arrested. So then the townspeople kind of get together and they start shooting back and forth at the soldiers that are there, the Mexican soldiers. And the Texans capture Bradburn's soldiers and they hold them hostage. And they demand that Travis and Jack are released. And Bradburn refused. And he decides to fire the cannon on the town. And the people retreat. And the colonists realize, oh, this isn't good. So they retreat to Turtle Bayou, where everything kind of calms down a little bit, and they still have Bradburn soldiers though in captivity, and Travis and Jack are still in prison. But they write this letter to Mexico, and it's an apology letter to Mexico, and it's basically, we're sorry, Mexico, we acted like complete fools, and we got angry over something so silly, but we really support the Constitution of 1824, and we are upset with President Bustamante because he's pretty much become a dictator, and he's thrown out the Constitution, and he won't allow us to colonize Texas anymore. He's stopped immigration. Our families have been split up. We're angry. And now, on top of that, you're gonna charge us to bring our things in from the United States, and we're getting silly and it's ridiculous, and we're mad. But we're sorry. We didn't mean to act like complete fools. But we support Santa Anna because Santa Anna wanted to overthrow President Bustamante, and they said, we support Santa Anna because he supports the Constitution of 1824, and the Constitution of 1824 provided for colonization of Texas, okay? And really, I'm sorry, Mexico, but come at me. But you keep giving me a hard time. I'm sorry, but you keep giving us a hard time over this. And it's just kind of their first reaction to things that happen. So the result of the Turtle Bayou Resolution, so when you're writing your notes down and you're going back and taking your notes, you need to have written this page down. That settlers meet at Turtle Bayou after Anahuac, and John Austin is sent to get a cannon from Brazoria. Drafted a resolution, pledged loyalty to Mexico under the Constitution of 1824, and Santa Anna at the time seemed to support the Constitution of 1824. Okay. And Colonel Jose de las Piedras orders Travis and Jack freed from jail. He comes up and he was like, okay, people just got upset. He comes in and he just kind of calms everything down. He says, okay, Bradburn, you're fired. He pulled a Donald Trump. He said, you're fired, and it's okay. Y'all got upset. I understand why you got upset. Let's just calm down, okay? And everything kind of settled down from that point. Now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to do what caused the situation at Anahuac, and what are the effects of the situation at Anahuac. So what happened there, and what did it cause to happen next after Anahuac? Here, you're going to tell me different points of view of the Mexican government versus the Anglo colonists and the Tejano people point of view. I need you to sit up, please. We have to sit up. We're not going to go to sleep. I know I'm not super, super exciting, but you can't sleep. Okay. Which takes us to the Battle of Velasco, which is, again, another time people get upset and overreact to things. So John Austin takes a cannon from Brazoria and he heads back to Anahuac, because he's like, he's not going to fire on the town, so we're going to go get a cannon so we can fire back. He and his men sail down the Brazos River toward the Gulf of Mexico, and they get to Velasco. And Colonel Huercheca refuses to let them pass, and they start fighting. And this is the first time Mexican and Texas troops fire at one another, is at the Battle of Velasco. And really, it's not a battle. It's just I'm coming down this river. No, you're not. Watch me come down the river. And where they go down the river, and as they go down the river, they kind of fire at each other, but they keep going. Does that make sense? It's a no, you're not. Yes, I am. And then they do it anyway, and they fire at each other, and that's it. Okay? But finally, in 1833, they think there's going to be some relief, and we're going to go back to normal. Things are going to get better again, because Santa Anna has finally overthrown President Bustamante, and he becomes president of Mexico. And most of the Texans were happy. They liked Santa Anna at the time, because he said he supported the Constitution of 1824. He promised that he was a Federalist. That means he believed in a system of government where everyone had a say instead of a centralist government where only a few people in the center of government have control. Okay, so they're excited that Santa Anna is here. Which takes us down to the Convention of 1833. It happens on April 1st. A meeting of delegates of a political party form policies and select candidates. Stephen F. Austin is going to be elected president of the convention. And a man named Sam Houston shows up to the convention. You may have heard the name Sam Houston before, but you're going to hear him a lot more for the next couple of units. So Sam, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on Sam. Sam comes from Tennessee. And Sam was a former governor of the state of Tennessee, okay? And he lost his bid for re-election as governor, okay? But after he lost his bid for re-election of governor, he was about to run for president of the United States, but Sam had a little problem. Sam drinks too much. He's an alcoholic, okay? And that gets out and people start recognizing how much he drinks, and so they don't want him as president because they see that he drinks too much, okay? So he figures he's going to come to Texas and see what he can do down here, okay? So he shows up in Texas. So the convention, though, wants to address the new president, Santa Anna, and ask for representation in government. So what they do is they ask Santa Anna to please make Texas a separate state. They're not part of Coahuila anymore. It's a separate state of Mexico. And they want immigration back from the United States because the law of April 6th has stopped all of that. And they want to be able to have immigration from the United States again. And Texas wanted to be exempt from certain import taxes, those customs duties, the things that were coming in. They wanted to get rid of that too. And they wanted more delegates. They wanted more representation in the state government. These are all things they're asking Santa Anna for. And they're also saying, there's still some hostile Native Americans in the area. We need more protection. You need to give us some cannon and some firepower to be able to protect ourselves from the Native Americans. And they asked Santa Anna for all those things at the Convention of 1833. They're saying, these are the things that Texas needs from you, Mexico. And the reaction is what causes the problem. So here's what you would write in your notes. This is what they're asking for at the Convention of 1832 and 1833. They pledge their support for the Constitution of 1824. They want a repeal of the law of April 6, 1830, and to repeal those customs duties. Repeal means to take it away. They want to allow U.S. immigration to Texas again. They want the Mexican government to grant Texas statehood. And they draft a letter from Stephen F. Austin, and they send him down to Mexico City with that letter, okay? So here you're going to address the grievances of the Texas colonists. What are those things they were asking for? Okay, what were they wanting from the Mexican government? That last slide just basically lists them out. So here, these are actually paintings from 1833. And you can actually see these paintings at the Capitol building. They're there. Okay, so in July of 1833, Austin arrives in Mexico City, and there's a cholera epidemic sweeping through the city. And Austin's meeting with Santa Anna is delayed because Santa Anna had left Mexico City because he didn't want to be in the city where people were dying of cholera. Sit up, please. Okay, so he's not even in the city. And Austin gets frustrated because he's been waiting around for months and months to see Santa Anna. And he writes a letter to the delegates in San Antonio, and he says, telling them to give up on the Mexican government and let's go ahead and just form our own government. Okay, so he sends that letter off. So do you agree with Austin's opinion to just go ahead and start forming a new government? Yes or no? And then here you're going to draw conclusions. What conclusions do you draw from the information? How might this look to the Mexican government? So in November, Santa Anna finally meets with Austin, finally, and agrees to some of the things that Texas was asking for, not all of them. Mainly, he says, okay, yeah, we'll do away with the law restricting immigration. Yes, you can have U.S. immigration back. And we'll get rid of some of those custom duties, but we're not going to get rid of all of them. And Austin leaves Mexico, and he's going to head back to Texas. And he's not 100% happy with what Santa Anna agreed to, but he's a lot happier than he was. And he thinks that he can convince those colonists this will be okay. We can live with this and push for more. So he leaves Mexico City December of 1833 to head back to Texas. Meanwhile, Mexican authorities in Saltillo had read Austin's letter, the one where he said, go ahead and form a new government. And they weren't real happy about it. And they arrested Stephen F. Austin right there on site and sent him back to Mexico City. And they charged him with treason against the Mexican government. Penalty for treason is death. Okay? Sit up, please, guys. So he is in prison for a year and a half without a trial. Yes, he's in prison for a year and a half without a trial. And he actually gets sick. He gets pneumonia. And remember me telling you, pneumonia was almost a death sentence then, okay? And that scares Santa Anna, and he's like, oh, those people in Texas, they love Stephen F. Austin. And if he dies here in Mexico City on my watch, they're going to be really angry. So they say he's on house arrest. He doesn't have to stay in the jail cell, but he's on house arrest. Okay? So he has to stay there, but he doesn't have to stay in a jail cell. But he gets better. He fights it off, and he gets better. He gets over the pneumonia. But he winds up having to stay in Mexico for just over 2 years, waiting and then being sick and then getting arrested, okay? But when he leaves Mexico City, Stephen F. Austin, he's ticked. He's angry. And the people of Texas are angry. So this is what you need to write down when you get to the notes for Stephen F. Austin. He traveled to Mexico to deliver the resolutions from the Convention of 1833. After a long wait, he finally meets with Santa Anna. Austin sent a letter to Texas telling Texas officials to establish a state government. Austin meets with Santa Anna eventually, who agrees to some things but not everything. Austin is arrested for treason on his way home because of the letter he sent, and he was kept in jail for over a year and a half, okay? So those are things you need to know about his trip to Mexico City. But when he gets back is when all Hades breaks loose. And people are ticked. And you were either on one side or the other. It was like pick a side, okay? You're either with Stephen F. Austin, and you saw how wrong that is when we were just trying to follow the law and they want to go to war. Or you're like, really? I agree with you, but I don't want to go to war with Mexico because I'm kind of scared of war with Mexico. Okay, so you're on one side or the other. So you're on the war party or you're on the let's make peace party. Okay, so it splits into two sides. The pro-peace party wanted the Constitution of 1824 restored. They feared that declaring independence would lose the Tejano support in Texas, and they felt they were loyal Mexican citizens. The other side wanted kind of to compromise. The war party, they argued that Texans should just go ahead and declare independence. Okay? Sit up, up, up. Okay, so they come to a compromise. Delegates pledge loyalty to Mexico only to use force to defend themselves. So we're not going to attack them, but if they attack us, we're going to go forward. Okay. And they warned that if the Constitution of 1824 was not restored immediately, that Texas was going to declare their independence. Okay. So they're telling Mexico, we're not going to start war with you, but if you come up here and attack us, we're going to defend ourselves. And we want that Constitution restored. And if you don't restore that Constitution, then we're declaring independence. And that's where the Second Battle of Anahuac takes place. Now, I'm going to tell you the Second Battle of Anahuac, you're not going to hear anything else really about. You can read what's on here, but it's not going to be on the test because it's just a little scuffle that happened, okay? The Texans are complaining about how the taxes at Anahuac are being collected unfairly. And then several Texans are thrown back into jail, and another battle is started between the Mexican official at Anahuac who is forced to surrender and leave Texas. Basically, they throw him out of Texas. He arrested some of the offending Texans, including a man named Lorenzo de Zavala, who was a impresario. Some Texans disagreed with what was done, but the general in charge, this is where they made the mistake. The general that was in charge there was said, somebody might need to turn off their phone. Okay, it happens. But the problem was the person in charge there was Santa Anna's brother-in-law, General Koff. And so he's gonna go cry to Santa Anna, those mean Texans, do you know what they did to me? And that's where we're going to have a problem. So then you have a warm up here that is the primary resources that for you to read and answer questions about. And that is the end of this PowerPoint. And starting day after tomorrow, we will start we'll talk about what really is the very beginning of the Texas Revolution. So we built up to a point right now where at the very top of the pyramid and everything's about to explode. Like everybody is done, okay? And once Stephen F. Austin comes back angry saying they arrested me for treason, people are gonna be like, nope, we're done. And that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that's when they declare all-out war on Mexico. So you need to go in, make sure you are doing the notes, that you take your notes. If you need paper to put your notes on, there's paper right down here for you to come get, and I have a pencil that you can keep if you need it. Your notes, you can use them on the test if you make your notes. They are a grade. You doing the notes is an actual grade. So it is to your advantage to have them and do them so that you get the grade and you can use them on the test. You see what I'm saying here? You're going to need them. So if you need paper, it's right down here. I have pencils. Is there any questions? Anyone from Mr. Handy's class? Y'all have questions? Do I need to explain anything any better? Or in the Zoom from my class? How can I help? Anyone? No? Nobody has questions? Okay. All right, you have an assignment you need to work on and it needs to be finished. So, and you have notes to make. There are also 3 ed puzzles that are linked in your Google Classroom. Many of you are not completing the ed puzzles. Those ed puzzles give you a better picture of what's taking place. Okay, they are grades also. Guys, if you go into the ed puzzle and you only spend 15 seconds in there, you realize it records how many seconds you actually spent watching the video. And I can go see that you didn't actually watch it. Yeah, and then you're clicking, I'm done, or turn it in. It's not gonna work. So you have to actually go in and watch and answer the questions, and it gives you a grade, and then that's the grade you get on it. So, any other questions? Okay. You don't have to stay in the Zoom, but the Zoom will stay open for you if you need it. I think Mr. Handy and myself both will be in here to answer whatever questions you have. Y'all can jump out of the Zoom if you need to do your work. Hey, actually, Mr. Handy, I'm gonna end the Zoom. That way we can get the recording and get it into a YouTube video, if you're good with that.
Okay, that's fine. Just send it to me.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end it then.
All right.